Welcome back. I got the idea for this video essay while helping my sister in her assignment which dealt with cinema. So shout out to her for letting me use some of her material. The assignment was about the depiction of resistance to patriarchy by women in Indian cinema. And one of the movies that she chose was Parched. Parched by Leena Yadav is an illustration of life of 4 lower class women who are restricted by social settings and forced to comply with the cultural practices to the point which beckons them to make the choice to break away from their present situation. The film deals with the themes of domestic violence, marital rapes, sexual liberation, and equality of opportunity through its protagonists Rani, Janaki, Bijli, and Lajjo. Let me just introduce the characters. Rani, played by Tanishta Chatterjee, is a 32-year-old woman who was married off at 13 years of age and widowed at 16.
Rani Kamar Jaiswal, 32 साल की विधवा सु 17 साल का छोरा से मारा.
She is now looking for a bride for her spoilt teenage son, Gulab. Lajjo, played by Radhika Apte, is Rani's best friend. She is treated as an outcast in her community because of her alleged infertility. Her husband, Manoj, played by Mahesh Balraj, is an alcoholic and regularly beats her.
दुनिया में मेरे जैसी बात नहीं होती तो बच्चों का अलग परदेसी बन गया था.
Bijli, played by Surveen Chawla, is a free-spirited dancer and a sex worker.
बिजली काम तो करना ही है ना, और जब तक हरी भरी है तब तक छाप ले जितना छाप सकती है.
She befriends Rani and thus Lajjo. Janaki, played by Leher Khan, is a newlywed teenage bride of Gulab. She works in the house with Rani. These women live in a tightly controlled world, hemmed in by tradition. But in their private spaces, they talk about love, sex, and their dreams for the future. Life seems like an unending cycle of hardships, punctuated by small bits of happiness. The film starts with a small journey taken by Rani and Lajjo to see the prospective child bride for Rani's son Gulab. And at first, the movie feels like an insight into the daily lives of these women. But it all breaks down soon. On the day of her son's marriage, Rani discovers that Janaki's hair has been cut off, dishonoring her in her village. This leads to Rani adopting rather a cold stance while dealing with her newlywed daughter-in-law.
माँ ने खुद सिखा के भेजा से कि नहीं? गाय के बदले बकरी बेच दी.
Janaki was unable to marry the love of her life as the parents of the boy failed to give the desired dowry. Janaki was left with no choice but to marry Gulab. Rani soon realizes that her son is no different than her late husband. She witnesses the flashbacks of her own marital life through Janaki on a daily basis, with the beatings and marital rapes committed by her son. Lajjo is in an abusive marriage but is also looked down by society and her husband for being infertile. As in typical patriarchal culture, a woman is worthy only when she is fertile. Yet, a fertile woman only gains respect if she gives birth to sons. Lajjo has surrendered to the oppression of her abusive alcoholic husband, despite experiencing the repetitive patterns, as her culture has chained her to remain in the marriage as a woman. Questioning her husband's potency and the strong urge to become a mother pushes Lajjo into a secret sex arrangement done by Bijli to achieve her ideal of a complete woman. Bijli is having her own struggles as she finds out that a new young skin might replace her soon as her youth starts fading. She is no longer the commodity in demand. She finds a sliver of hope in Raju only to find that he also sees her only as a business opportunity. On an eventful night, upon receiving news of Lajjo's pregnancy, Manoj accuses her of adultery, revealing that he was actually impotent. During the commotion, Manoj catches fire by accident and Lajjo passively watches her husband burn to ashes. On the other hand, Rani sets her daughter-in-law Janaki free from the marriage by allowing her to flee with her lover. Both Rani and Lajjo leaves the village with their friend Bijli in search of new beginnings and opportunities. They depart from being passive and submissive tolerants of typical patriarchal men in their lives, hence overcoming the oppression in the ways that they felt right. To tell such extreme stories is tricky, and sometimes Parched falls on the side of caricature, particularly with its male characters. Every man is a villain, from the elders who scoff at the idea of women having any success, all the way down to the young boys. Only one Kishan seems to be even human by the film's end, and even his character remains underdeveloped. But the women of Parched, especially the three at its center, are wonderfully complex. Rani is fully aware of her dark early days as a young wife, during which she was mistreated by both her husband and her mother-in-law, but reflexively treats Janaki with disdain and even abuse. Lajjo erodes under her husband's tyranny, but still lives for his approval. Bijli seems breezily liberated, but can't come up with a way to free herself that does not require a man. These women are thirsty for everything, for passion, for love, for sex, and for freedom. These conflicts keep the film consistently surprising, and cinematographer Russell Carpenter, who also shot Titanic and the upcoming Avatar, makes sure that Parched is vibrantly alive, full of color and light and movement and music. Director and writer Leena Yadav set Parched in a slightly fictionalized world. The characters live in a dusty, invented rural village called Ujhas, modelled on similar villages in northwestern India, and they speak an invented dialect. But the rest of the details, the forced child marriages, the financial difficulties, the spousal and familial rapes, the physically and emotionally abusive alcoholic husbands, all are drawn from stories that Yadav heard from women in those villages while traveling to find a story.
So then we went and traveled in these villages and had lots of enlightening conversations. I did meet a woman like Rani in my film who was widowed when she was 15, and I could not even imagine what that meant. She was dressed in black for the rest of her life. She just dedicated her life to bringing up her son. And there was a point in that conversation where she held my hand and she said, "I haven't been touched in 14 years. Do you know what that means?" It took me a while to even process what that is and what is that life. And she behaved like an old woman at 32.
Parched is a filmmaker's attempt to understand how and why these women continue to live.
So I was seeing this woman who was laughing the most, and she was bruised. And that was really disturbing me. At one point, I went and asked her, I said, "Does your husband beat you up?" And she said, "Oh, let's not talk about that. We're having so much fun. That's, that's part of life. And yeah, he beats me. But, where should he take out his anger but me?" And I said, this is the spirit that I want to capture in my film. It's not going to be a deep, depressing, dark film. Because the spirit of these women, which keeps them alive, I wish that spirit made them question and made them a community, made them a support system for each other. Which doesn't happen because, again, society has drilled us with lots of conditioning. A woman who gets married and gets badly treated by her mother-in-law will still grow up and become a mean mother-in-law. And then somewhere in your head you justify it, it's okay. I also went through it, so she can also go through it.
Yadav is also to be commended for including in her story two important scenes symbolic of women's liberation. One involves a scene where Rani, in a rare moment of tender eroticism, gently touches Lajjo's breasts while cleaning her body after her husband has beaten her. Here the director shows the sexual yearning that has not been destroyed in these women. In another scene, Bijli sends Lajjo to a close encounter with a yogi, played by Adil Hussain, who is well versed in the Kama Sutra and its message of a man's surrender to the sexual needs of a woman. Both of these excursions add nuance to the quest of these women bound by culture for a life of more choices and change. Leena Yadav tells the story of women who are parched in terms of their domestic life, their sexuality, their acceptance in society, while setting it in a literally parched landscape. Interestingly, the film's final scenes are set against the backdrop of a festival celebrating the day on which a lord and a goddess, defeated the forces of evil and lies, replacing them with truth. The celebrations, which involve burning a representation of villains in effigy, are intercut with scenes of radical liberation for Rani, Lajjo and Bijli. Some might point out the open ending of the film, arguing that the fate of these women was left unexplored. What I felt was that even Yadav, in trying to understand the women who live in these with seemingly willing resignation to their fate, could not fathom the idea of leaving them in that world. She sets them free, and for some people, freedom is costlier than others. Whether that's a failure of imagination on her part or a success depends on your point of view. Now, before concluding my video, a special shout out to two performances. Champa, played by Shayne Gupta, in a small cameo, managed to shake me. In the scene when she tells her mother that she gets raped by her in-laws and her mother silently sends her off. The brief look of disbelief and shock that for her mother, her well-being and safety is secondary to societal acceptance says it all. Another great performance is that of Gulab, played by Riddhi Sen. In his brief interspersed appearances, he manages to make the audience hate him, which is an achievement in itself. Just like the filmmaker, each individual audience member is decoding the subjective meaning behind cinema based on the multiple aspects of their own individual identities, which often lead to interpretation in ways different than the filmmaker has intended. Thus, the audience becomes an active participant rather than a passive receiver of media. Films are a cathartic mode of storytelling and engages the audience in it. Particularly the films that deal with social issues garner wide attention. As it happens with any art form, the interpretation of cinematic representation of women dealing with the fetters of patriarchy also to a large extent depends on the audience. The film, albeit the ones dealing with social realities, must be deconstructed and evaluated in terms of their relevance to the zeitgeist. Cinema as a medium is also limited by the very nature of it, that is, time-bound storytelling. This compels the filmmakers to find the stories of extraordinary nature, even when they are revolving around ordinary characters. In the context of patriarchy, films tell the stories of oppression, resistance, and even revenge, but they cannot be seen as Bible. Films can showcase only a part of reality, and it is up to the audience to ponder upon the meaning behind cinema. The search for truth can be considered as one of the goals of art, and if we watch the cinematic depiction of revenge and resistance of patriarchy by women, we must search for the truth behind the portrayals also. The quest for freedom and equality within a just society lies at the core of all such stories. And this is why I love Parched. If you like the video, kindly hit the like button, share the video with your loved ones, and do subscribe for more content. I know that I am not a regular uploader, but a free subscription from your side will definitely give me a boost. So please do that. Till next time, stay safe and have a good time.